Ladies and gentlemen of the basketball world, we are back. We are in the zone. Rich Sutter, Pete Coles. There has not been a dynamic duo since Redford and Newman on the screen. Pete, is there Narcan for basketball people? That's what I need to know right now. Is there Narcan for basketball people? Because right now I'm in a state of overdose. It's unbelievable. 12-4 was everything that they kicked it off to be. We're going to talk about that. But right now, we're going to jump into Pete's Corner. And it's a segment of the show where Pete formulates and postulates some questions for me. And I try to do my best to answer them. Pete, let's shoot.
All right. So it looks like the East is undergoing a renaissance in the NBA. I'm looking at the Emirates Cup. I know you love it. But there's two teams in the Emirates Cup that are 4-0 in the East.
Yeah, I did take a little look at the Cup last night also to inform our fans. I just had to dive into it just a little bit to see what was going on. I have gained some understanding. Haven't changed my stance. Get rid of it, at least move it more towards the middle of the season where it might have some bearing and have some meaning. But I did look at it a little bit last night. And the East right now is starting just slowly to balance itself out a little bit. They got off to a very, very rocky start. If you look at the NBA in a four-quarter situation, the first 20 games is the first quarter. Next 20 games leading up to the All-Star break, you get to the halftime break. Then you go into the second half of the season, you're in the third and really important fourth quarter. And that's kind of how it breaks out every 20 games. So right now you're looking at that first 20-game cohort, and a lot of people are just shaking their head. A lot of people are going, how did all of this happen? But then over time, you know, will the Celtics grab the Cavaliers this year? You know, to get control back of the Eastern Conference. That's one of the baselines that we'll be following on the show. I think they do. I think as time goes out, this Cleveland team has had a really, really good start, and they're really producing good basketball. I don't want to take anything from them, but as you're seeing in the East and other places, it's starting to balance out. Who did the Cup benefit? Primarily in the East, it benefited two teams. Milwaukee Bucks got hot. The Milwaukee Bucks got very hot. Doc Rivers, I thought, would have been on the hot seat. I've changed my hot seat face, and I'm going to give it to you today, Pete, and I think you're going to be a little surprised with it. But we're taking Doc Rivers off of our in-the-zone hot seat right now by virtue of a 9-game win streak. They got clipped last night by the Hawks, and that's the other team that I want to say that this Cup has really benefited. Trae Young had 22 assists the other night. He's a lead guard that's been a scoring guard most of his time, but now has really taken on the passing role. He's one of the leaders in the NBA in assists right now, and it's really been benefit to the Hawks to change that little bit of a point guard model from I'm going to shoot the ball every time I touch it and lead the team that way to I'm going to lead with my passing, I'm going to lead with my speed, I'm going to lead with my decision making. And right now, 22 assists, my God, that's unbelievable. So the East is calibrating. When we jump to the Power 15, which we're going to do right after this, you're going to see that as well. The East is recalibrating, but the West is pretty strong. West got some people out there, and there's some things in the West that haven't formulated yet either. Are the Timberwolves going to rise? Do the Denver Nuggets stay right on the midline where they are, or are they going to be able to rise and get back into the top of the Eastern Conference Finals? Golden State Warriors, Phoenix Suns, Los Angeles Lakers, a little bit of the older tribe in the NBA, are they going to be able to rise and see? So I think it's going to be interesting. And as we're in this first quarter, the West absolutely dominated, as you're alluding to, Pete. The West dominated in this first quarter. And now a little bit, now you're starting to see some balance out, though. But great question, Pete. Great question.
All right. In the NCAA realm, it looks like UConn is starting to bounce back after a rough road in Maui. Which conference is looking the best right now? Because I'm looking through the conferences, and I notice there's a lot of teams up there on the top. Even though they're eating cannolis this time of year, we get that. But there seems to be a lot of parity in the Big East, more so than any other conference.
Okay. Another absolutely fantastic question. I'm going to break it into two parts. The first part of the question is you see UConn had a good win over Baylor last night on 12-4, that big super night. I would give the NCAA real credit for that. I'm going to explain to you, a lot of the folks, how that all occurred and happened, and you'll be probably a little surprised at how that how that did occur. But we're going to explain that a little bit later in the show. But for right now, what I was hoping that you would ask me this, Pete, to be honest with you, because I've been thinking a lot about it myself. And the big thing is what's wrong with UConn? You know, lost 3 in a row out in Maui, games probably that maybe, you know, in the years past they would have won. And so I just wanted to dissect that for just a few minutes. What's going on at UConn right now? Can they get out of where they are right now? Is the Baylor game something that portends? I mean, they beat, I think it was Maryland Eastern Shore by like 50 points in between those games. So they came home and had a good win. But I think if you saw Danny Hurley on the sideline last night, Mahaney played very, very well. And he described him as a phoenix rising out of the ashes. And what I think happens also is, so let's just go into the macro. What's going on with UConn? Tremendous success. You'll often hear this as hard times lead to great men. And then great men lead to good times. But then good times leads to bad men, and bad men lead to weak times, and then you repeat the cycle again. And so where you are right now in that cycle is you've had such good times, you know, that they're having trouble mediating that and trying to keep it together. That's real, and it's an absolute part of it. Secondly, their schedule, you know, is where you would normally have not stepped out and taken on 3 really, really tough teams like that in a row, 3 days in a row. You know, I think that's, you know, something that Danny Hurley also alluded to. They're going to cut that out in the near future. But what's happening with them is you're assembling new teams every year, and now they're being assembled under immense pressure to produce, to be that championship team. And it's a little bit unfair to this team to have that hanging over them. I think they've worn a little bit on them, but I think this team's very talented, and I think, you know, you might see the whole team rise like the phoenix out of the ashes. The Baylor game was tough last night. I did not see VJ Edgecomb's name in the box score. I'm not sure if he's injured or not, but that's what's going on at UConn right now, just a little bit of the microcosm of what's happening there. I mean, kudos to them for having that great success and wanting to hold that standard. I think that's awesome. Anybody who saw Danny Hurley on the sideline last night and in his press conference, they said, did you headbutt Mahaney after the timeout? Mahaney hit a big 3. It was a monster shot. The place erupted. Place was great. They called timeout, went to the sidelines, and the reporter goes, did you headbutt Mahaney? And most coaches would be like, oh, no, it was incidental contact. You know, Danny Hurley jumps right in, and I love this about him. He goes, yep, I headbutted him. And then he punched me so hard in the chest, I think he cracked one of my ribs. Said, but that's where they live, man. That's how excited they are about basketball. And anybody who doesn't understand that, you're an outsider. You don't understand it. Anybody who's been inside it, you understand that 100%. That kid's been struggling. Danny Hurley's been living with him and trying to get him back and get him out and play ball like he knows he can play ball. And for that moment in the Garden against a big-time opponent, Mahaney shows up, and Danny Hurley celebrated it like a coach would celebrate his prodigal son coming home. Great moment there. But now let's go to your conference question.
Yeah.
Who's the best right now? I got to give it to the SEC, Pete, right now. I really believe that they're the best conference around. You got to give the Big 12 some credit, too. Big East, ACC, fallen. They have fallen, and they're having trouble getting up. I got stats on that a little bit later in the show. I don't want to look for it right now, so we'll keep rhythm with the show, but there's something on that about how the power conferences are faring against each other, and right now it's a surprise. The Big Ten has been a pretty good surprise, too, as well. The Big Ten has held their water, but that's also because they've added all those teams in. Like Oregon's really good. People don't know about Oregon. I'm calling right now in the zone, Oregon will win the Big Ten. Okay, you're about 1,200 to 1, $1,200 to $100 on that right now. It's a good bet. You put $100 down, you win $1,200 if they win. I'm going to give it to you right now. Oregon wins the Big Ten. I watched them last night against USC, and they're tough. I've seen them a few times right now. And Dana Altman, I'm going to go out on a limb right here. I'd put him in the top 5 coaches in the game right now. Dana Altman at Oregon. But Pete, that's a good question. Right now, I think you'll see some bounce, but remember last year where we lived in that little bit of a triumvirate with Purdue, UConn, and Houston? You know, that ain't happening this year. That ain't happening this year. When we get to our Super 25, right? You're going to see this thing's been turned upside down. Pete, you got your snow globe. You got your snow globe ready because it's been snowing outside, and boy, oh boy, it's been snowing inside on that NCAA as well. But let's move on to question 3, Pete. There
All
it
right,
is.
question 3. After a sprint out of the gates in the NCAA's Division I, even down to your Division III, is that semester break needed, where you really have a time to refocus, find out what's working and what doesn't, and kind of refocus your team for the stretch drive into March Madness?
Good question. The Division I break is almost obsolete now because there's so much play over the tournament time.
Okay.
They'll go home. They'll probably go home for a little bit of time, but I'm sure you're going to see some people. There was a lot of games on Thanksgiving this year, which I was a little bit surprised that coaches wouldn't want to do that. I believe that's a better family time, but it is. You're going to send them home for that quick go. They go home. You got to come right back. Got to get flights. Guys will be late. I understand all of that. Logistically, it's a bit of a nightmare to get everybody home and get them back in short time. Now let's talk about Christmas or the Division III break. Our break starts 12/14. That's when our break starts. That's our last game of the semester, and that will start then. And then it goes till usually after New Year's. If I have to bring them back a few days early before New Year's, I do that if the schedule dictates. But right now, our league schedule starts a little bit later this year on the calendar, so we're probably not going to bring them back too much earlier than that. But to me, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And that's where we rely on our young men to go to their high school gyms and work out with their old teams and work out with their old coaches because they're home and they can get in the gym. And those places you're usually having practice, so they can roll by into their old gyms and get into their practice. Not only that, we have a lot of local players and we have a lot of gymnasiums that we have access to right now, including our own. And so we get our young men to probably stay in as best shape we can during that time. But once you get out beyond a week with these young men, and everybody knows what happens when you go home for break, okay, with these young people.
Yeah.
They're not going, just to the mall. Now, they're going to hit Applebee's. They're going to hit some places. They're going to party. They're going to have a good time. And so that part of it, you want to get them back as fast as you can to shorten and minimize that. Then what happens with us is we go all the way by ourselves. We would start then, like around, let's say it's January 2nd, we bring them back. Now, the campus is still empty.
Sure, yeah.
Until after Martin Luther King Day.
Yep.
And so we have a little bit of an intercession period, which I always like because there's no class. We can have 2-a-days. We can really, really get down and hone in on our league stuff, and I appreciate that.
Well, that's what I was talking about, but the refocusing part, where you really have a chance to see, hey, here's what's working and here's what's not. You go over with your assistant coaches and go, hey, we may want to change what we're doing here because it's not some of what we got is working and some of what we got is not working.
We get a good chance to reflect a little bit, but also what happens for us is October 15th, me and my assistant coaches are on the road. We're going to games. We're going recruiting. So that time isn't really downtime for us. There's a lot of Christmas tournaments, a lot of NEPSAC, a lot of local tournaments around here that we have to hit. And so we'll be there and we'll be working those as well, trying to get our recruiting class together for next year. So it's a time where I say this to people all the time. My job, I don't have a job. I love what I do, but my job also never, ever has a day off unless it's Christmas. Thanksgiving or Christmas, So it's just one of those things. I love it, but it doesn't. There is no time off. You can't expect that if you're going to be a basketball coach. Your phone's going to ring. The email's going to go. You got to be alert. You got to be on top of it. And recruiting is like breathing if you're a coach. You need to do it every single day to survive. You just can't turn it on and off. I think upstairs with the NIL and all the cash flowing around, it's become a little easier to recruit. Not down here. We got to still hustle. We still got to make it work.
Yep.
But, Pete, 3 of your best. 3 of your best. We hit it last night, and I sent it to you. So I hope we got our NBA Power 15 rocking, rolling, and ready to go. Here we go. There it is, Pete. A thing of absolute beauty. The Cavaliers are holding on. Cavaliers and Celtics are taking the Eastern Conference, and they're going to make it their own right now. I give them the Magic a little bit of credit for climbing into the conversation, and the Magic are playing great basketball. I got the Cavaliers, the Magic, and the Hawks as my real 3 Eastern surprise teams. I'm a little surprised at the 76ers, the Bucks, the Lakers, some of the teams that are really down there. I thought we'd get better out of them, but it's one of those things in the NBA. It's a little topsy-turvy this day.
How surprised are you that the Cavaliers are still winning?
they're just playing good basketball. And people, because he's in Cleveland, people don't know how good Donovan Mitchell is. And Donovan Mitchell's a stud NBA player. People rarely talk about him as one of the best players. But right now, he's played into that total team concept there, and they've just got it going. They got it going. And they've got a coach that was, had been fired once before. Sometimes that's a good learning process. And right now they're doing really good stuff. Now, as I said, you're talking about 21, 22 games. It's a pretty much of a first quarter. Are they good enough to hold on all the way through? I think part of what we alluded to previously, Pete, is the East isn't very good. So most of the candy that they're going to be munching on this year is going to be sweet. They're going to have a chance to run away. If you were in the West, you're going to get knocked up a little bit. But I think the Cavaliers and the Celtics are going to create this kind of hyperspace where they just run away from everybody else. And if you saw the game the other night where I was looking for I was going to bump the Celtics up and put them in the number one. I love the Celtics in our Power 15 number one. They've been taken out of there for the first time in a while. But the Cavaliers handled them. The Cavaliers and the Celtics went straight up. They gave the Celtics their fourth loss and jumped up with 3 losses of their own. So I had to go with them. Celtics in the 2 spot. Porzingis is back. It's creating some spacing. It's creating some room. But they've got a little bit of a mash unit going on as well. Giroux's been hurt. They can't afford to have Jrue Holiday out. That's the glue to this team. He's been injured, a little bit hampered. If they get him back, they get moving, they're fine. But right now they do have some injuries. Horford's been out. And they don't necessarily have the type of depth of some of the other NBA teams, especially on their front line, that's going to sustain and carry them if they have significant injuries that are for a long time. So they're getting Porzingis back, but you got to watch him because he's a bit of a China doll. He's a fragile player, one of those China doll players. So you got to watch him. OKC Thunder, Pete. It's a good story. This team is very well positioned as a franchise, going to do some good things in the future. They've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And this is the question that we posed, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago when we asked on a Power 15, will they be able to sustain this without Chet Holmgren, who took a bad injury? And the answer is, yeah, they've been sustaining 16-5 and doing a good job. The Rockets are in liftoff, Pete. They're in our number 4 spot. They are in the number 2 spot in the Western Conference right now. And even myself, who have been very high on this team, I like this team. I like their youth. I like their coach. I like the way they're doing things. But even I'm a little surprised that they're doing this, that they're this high. 15-7. They're playing at almost a 700 clip right now, and that's just really, really good basketball if you can sustain it. Again, one of my surprise teams, Orlando Magic. Franz Wagner. He's out there doing big things, and he's a stud. He's another guy, like you would say with the guy from the Cavaliers, he's another guy who kind of operates in this obscurity, but he is killing it right now. Franz Wagner, Tyler Herro, Donovan Mitchell, those are some names. You're not going to hear them every night for MVP, but right now they're absolutely killing it. All right, Orlando Magic are good at 16-8. Luka and company, Kyrie, they got Klay Thompson, and I didn't think it was a great pickup. Klay turned to Klay in Golden State, and when that happens, sometimes you're shooting. We're going to talk about LeBron James's shooting woes right now. Sometimes when your shooting goes, that makes him null and void, Pete. When Klay Thompson's jump shot goes, that makes him null and void. He's not a defender. He's not going to be an assist guy. He's not going to be able to show up in those other categories that are going to help you. Not going to go get extra rebounds. He's not going to be able to do that. When the jump shot dies on players like that, you got to run the other way. And they ran right into this. Mark Cuban and his Dallas Mavericks team ran right into a right-hand punch right there, and it was just not good, I don't think. We'll see if they can close it. Memphis Grizzlies, my big guy Zach Edey's been out. Got pulled to the ground by Dirty Draymond. He's been out for a little bit, and I didn't get injured there, but he's had bad ankles. He takes way too many chances with shot blocking and stuff like that. To be a solid NBA center, he's going to have to tone that down a little bit. But the Grizzlies are 14-8. Ja Morant is back, maybe the best athlete in the entire NBA, and he's playing good basketball right now. The Knicks, 8 in the 8th spot. Down on the Knicks before, but I'll give Thibodeau credit. They've rectified this thing. They've consolidated. They've got their offense to be a little bit more diverse, which I was screaming about. Please get the ball out of Brunson's hands as much as it is. Big Cat has really responded. He's now, I think, leading the NBA in rebounding, and he's also producing great numbers and has had 40 piece nugget to add to the repertoire. He's had a pretty good year. I was not a big fan of his, but the other piece of it is his defense is absolutely non-existent, and that's got to change. So many guys in the NBA. If you want to know why your viewership is down, you don't play defense. That's why. That's half of the game, and you don't participate in it. All right, Los Angeles Clippers, 14-9. We talked about this. Hard to be Harden unless he's by himself. Kawhi Leonard out the entire season. They traded Paul George. They've got some other pieces there, Ivica Zubac, but really it's been Harden. And when he can do his own thing and run his own show and be the guy who dominates the ball, you're going to be all right with him. You know, they're 14-9. I think they'll be 500 by the end of the year, though. Phoenix Suns, 12-8. They missed Durant. They missed Kevin Durant, and he's getting back now. But when he's out, they're really a different team. Golden State Warriors, 12-8. They had a very, very good run, but then they absolutely have gotten clipped lately. They're on a losing streak, and they're having some. I think they're having some internal issues as well, because I think Steve Kerr, not a big fan. I know he's got his rings. Don't like what he did to Jason Tatum, but I think he's trying a 13-man rotation in the NBA. And to me, honestly, that's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, this is the NBA. If you want to do that in as a freshman coach, you try that, but you know, you don't do that in the NBA.
If you go more than 4 guys deep, you got problems.
Yeah, and then those guys aren't getting enough reps and enough minutes. That's the one thing you can be for sure of.
Yeah.
And they gotta, you know, I gotta be honest with you. They say these guys are great coaches, and I watch the end of the game and I look at them and I go, what in the name of God are you paying this guy money for when they just allow Steph Curry to stand up there at half court, string the ball, and take a shot? I mean, my grandmother could come back from the dead and call that play. I mean, it's unbelievable, the actual lack of any kind of basketball going on in that league right now. And it's terrible. It's a three-point shooting contest. And if anybody wanted to see that, they would go to the CYO, because actually that's where they're making more of them. Los Angeles Lakers, 12-10. Here you go, Pete. I'm going to give it to you. The first coach to be fired this year will not be Doc Rivers. We're taking him off our hot seat. Hot seat right now, J.J. Redick. Oh, boy, things are going to get intense there. We're going to watch this all year long. But do you have that clip I sent you?
Oh, no.
About LeBron? All right, we'll look for it later. Milwaukee Bucks in at 11-10, and the Atlanta Hawks sliding in there, doing really, really good stuff. Trae Young playing great. Now, some of this, I want to keep everybody as updated as possible. So when I do this, Wednesday nights have become a bit of a headache for me. Because last night I'm trying to do my Super 25 and somebody threw a Molotov cocktail into the Super 25. I'm trying to do my Power 15 after I came in late from practice, trying to get it to Pete so he can do the graphics. And I'm looking at this thing, and it's absolutely getting blown up in different places as well. Here's what I'm talking about. The Bucks had won 7 in a row. I was ready to call them one of our hot teams of the week, 9-1. But then late last night, they dumped the game to the Hawks. The Hawks are winners of 5 in a row, though, playing good basketball in our hot segment. The Knicks have won 3, but they're 8-2 in their last 10. Good sign. Mavericks have won 5, 9-1 in their last 10, and they're playing good basketball. Now we jump into our not hot segment, Pete, and it's bad. The Wizards have lost 15 games straight. And when you've lost 15 straight, you're 0-10 in your last 10. They are DFL in the Eastern Conference. That means dead freaking last. Hornets lost 6 games in a row, 2-8 in their last 10. The Pelicans have lost 9 games in a row. Zion Williamson been out. They are 1-9 in their last 10. Came off a 1-game winning streak and then dumped 9 in a row. Tough at the Pelicans right now. The Jazz ain't all that Jazz right now. L5, 1-9 in their last 10. And the Pelicans are DFL. Okay.
Got
Pete,
the LeBron clip.
You got my LeBron clip. Okay, this is why I think J.J. Redick gets fired, or they should dump LeBron James right now and try and get whatever they could possibly get for him. All right? I had intimated last year that they should try and trade him to the Knicks. And when he's energized and going well, he's playing great. But you got to watch this, folks. And this is really, really disgusting. Okay, here we are in defense. Okay, shot goes up. Boom. There's LeBron James at the bottom of your screen. He stands there and walks towards the bench and does not go back on defense. all the time, still not back on defense. Nowhere in the frame
It's a
is he back
5-on-4.
on defense. Here he comes now, jogging in because they're probably screaming at him on the bench to get back on defense. But if you're J.J. Redick and you see that, and you haven't confronted that, and you haven't done anything with that, because if you've watched him on defense all year long, there's a guy that's on TikTok whose only job, it seems right now, is to go on TikTok, scream as loud as he can about how J.J. Redick and LeBron James are awful. And he does point things out in really, really, poignant fashion where you have stuff like that going on, but there's 1,000 other paper cuts because this gentleman just does not participate at all on the defensive end. And I'm saying to the Lakers right now, you're a very storied basketball franchise, one that I have great respect for, going back to when I was a little kid watching Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West. You're one of the NBA franchises, and that is absolutely beyond the pale. You need to do something about that in one way or the other. Hey, this guy hasn't had a coach in 15 years. He's been the coach. He's been the general manager. And you see why they're as bad as they are right now, because that doesn't work, folks. You need somebody who's in charge of the team, who calls the plays, and when people do that, they get taken out of the game and they don't get put back in the game for a while. Problem is he's LeBron James. And now you see you're going to stick around too long and you're going to tarnish your legacy for some statistical improvements in your career, which you think will point to you being the greatest of all time. And when you look at that right there, and people are going to historically go back and look at that, they won't even put you in the top 5, brother. You won't even be in the top 5 of the NBA greatest players of all time. And no way would you belong in it by effort and being a teammate in that fashion. I can't stand that stuff, Pete.
Is he
it really,
gassed
really
already?
bugs me. I'm going to go right into this right now, and I'm going to keep up with this and say, okay, who do we have for a trade and cut in the NBA right now? I'm going to throw some free advice out to general managers. Here you go. LeBron James, trade him, cut him, get him out if he's going to do that. Number 2, Kawhi Leonard. Why? I call him Why Leonard. Okay, why do you have him on your team when he never plays a game? He doesn't participate. You're paying him huge, huge money. You could go get a half a team for that money. Get him out. Joel Embiid. I don't play back-to-back Embiid. Get him out. Cut him. Get rid of him. Get him out of the league. He's bad for the league. You're paying these guys all this money. Let's bring up the new generation. Let's let them get after it and bring and restore some kind of dignity back to the NBA. Because right now, when you want to know why the NBA is losing viewership, why the NBA is like one step above a root canal as far as their approval ratings, you got the reason right there. It's right in front of your face. And you, gentlemen, are the ones doing it. You're the one tarnishing the legacy. You're the ones who can't get up and play back-to-back. You're the ones who can't even run back on defensive end and not have your team play 5-on-4. You think your Lakers, you're going to win playing 5-on-4? Paul George, get him out. Kristaps Porzingis, another China doll. I like him, but I'm not a big fan of people that sit out 30, 40, 50 games, and they got all these different injuries that nobody ever heard of. Klay Thompson, get him out. Chris Middleton, Bucks, get him out. Zion Williamson, if he can't train like a pro, get him out. Draymond Green, bad for the game, get him out. Dirty Draymond. Get those guys out of here.
If those guys weren't making tens of millions of dollars a year, nobody would care.
Yeah. That's what I love about this show, though, Pete. We get to say whatever we want. Now get them out.
Yeah.
Get them out. Everybody else kisses their butt all day long. Get them out. You stink. You're a bad representation for the NBA. Get them out. Harden, 40-point games. How many, Pete? He's got 102 40-point games. Who's next? LeBron, 77. Of course, you can get 40-point games when you don't cross half court and you just cherry-pick the other side for layups. No problem there. Durant, 70 40-point games. Steph Curry, 68. Dame Lillard, 59. Giannis, 52. Russell Westbrook, 50. Harden is the first player to break 40 points with 5 different teams. That's an anomaly unto itself. That's also very communicative to the viewers and to the listeners. Why would you want a guy who pops 40 like that all the time to be on 5 different teams? Why would he be traded as many times as a rookie card that has no value? Currently, he has been in more cities than Lufthansa. All right. That was a trader cut. I felt better after that. A little
cleansing.
Cam Spencer, he's in the G League. He's one of our favorite guys, man. We love this guy. He's a dog. He plays the game the right way, and this kid can flat out shoot the lights out. They got him in the G League, and he's going. I don't know why you don't want this guy on your bench. I don't know why you don't got this guy on your roster. You have guys that won't even cross half court. All right? This is what my friend does when he gets sent to the G League. Shearman goes to the G League and drops 31. Okay, other guys floating around down there, they can't find a pencil or an eraser. Okay, but my guy goes down there, 51 points on 18 of 24. That's when you go for 50. Yeah. When you're hot, 18 of 24. Not a LaMelo Ball 50 points where you just took 60 shots. This guy, unbelievable. 12 of 15 from three-point range. 36 points of the 51 came from three-point range. Okay? And he won. They won. His team won. This is another symptom of what's wrong with the NBA. If this guy is not in your league and Baylor Shearman is getting a two-way, that's a problem in your league. And I'll tell you why it's a problem, but everybody knows why, and I don't need to say it. Okay, LeBron James. That's what we're going to call him right now, Pete. LeBron. He should be LeBron. He stayed too long, okay? After watching that, he stayed on the throne too long. He hasn't had a head coach, and he's been canceling and controlling the players that come in and out. He's been general manager, coach, and the results are disastrous, okay? Poor teammate also, poor role model. Kids adore this guy. Kids watch this guy, and all of a sudden, that clip is all over social media of him just walking over to the bench and leaving his teammates to rot 5-on-4. Oh, nothing worse than that. There's also, you look at his shooting lately, and this was something that popped up to me, and I'm like, because this is a whole new day we live in. With all of these contingency bets going on out there, I'm looking at all of these guys, and he was something like 0 for 19, 0 for 20-something from three-point range over the course of a number of games. Okay? And I would imagine that in Vegas, in some of these parlors, they do have bets on whether LeBron James will make over a certain amount of threes.
Wait a minute, isn't he playing a guard now? He should be hitting threes all the time.
They moved him to the point guard. He's assisting. Right. He's been in and out, but, I mean, offensively, he's always been in tune because he wants to score. He wants to get points. He wants to get assists.
Right.
He wants to get all that other stuff. They don't, unless he wants to get rebounds, there's no real love on the defensive end for him right now. And so it's really become apparent what he's doing. And it's just, to me, it kind of rots away at the game. Steph Curry joins the 24,000-point club. Wow. He's the 29th player to do it. You got LeBron at 40K. You've got Kareem at 38K, so it'll give you some understanding of how much distance there is between the 24K and the top of the 24K club. Karl Malone right there, Kobe, and Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is the best athlete, best basketball player ever to play. If I had to choose between Larry Bird and LeBron James on my team, I would take Larry Bird every single day of the week and twice on Sunday. You can come at me, bring it, I'm ready. Okay, Pete, your cup. The cup runneth over. The bracket for the cup. All right, we got the Bucks and the Magic on the East. Both teams playing good basketball, doing pretty good. The loss to the Hawks for the Bucks was very surprising the other night, but then you got the Knicks and the Hawks down on the other side. That's your Eastern Conference 4. Here's your Western Conference 4. OKC Thunder playing good basketball, and the Mavericks matched up, and then you have the Rockets and Warriors. If this was a real playoff system, it would look pretty good. If this was the playoffs, like you actually have a playoff at the end of the year, you'd be excited about this. But this isn't a playoff. This isn't anything, and it stinks to the high heavens. But I dare anybody to tell me how it all works, and explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. All right, let's get into some of the stats, Pete. All right? The Joker, MVP odds. He's 71% to win the MVP right now in Vegas. Tatum, 9.3. SGA, 8.6. Giannis should be getting a lot more love than that at 4.0. And Anthony Davis at 1.6. Rebounders and points per game. We got Giannis at 32.7. He's taken over the lead and taken over it pretty good. LaMelo Ball at 31.1 has not seen a shot that he did not like. Okay? He shoots the ball during the national anthem. That's why he scores 31 a game. The Joker, 30. SGA, 29.8. And Luka, 29.1. Rebounds, you got Karl Anthony Towns. I was correct. He is leading the league slightly over the Joker. He's 13-1, Joker 13-0. Domantas Sabonis in third with 12-6. Ivica Zubac and Jakob Poeltl out in Toronto, wallowing out in Toronto. Unbelievable. Our guy with assists, we get 22 assists. You're going to lead the league. He's 12.2. He's almost 2 points above his nearest competition, which is the Joker, which is why the Joker is 77% right now, 71% right now, chance to win the MVP because he's averaging a triple-double, folks. Okay, LeBron, 9.1. Cade Cunningham, 8.8. And James Harden, 8.8. The stick, Victor Wembanyama, has taken back his blocks championship title. Walker Kessler in second. Brooke Lopez. Donovan Clingan of UConn fame, 2.2. And Miles Turner. Okay, Pete, I'm making a suggestion to my friend Adam Silver, NBA commissioner. Mr. Silver, I've got news for you. The NBA needs the portal potty. The NBA needs to be able to transfer. Some of these young men must be being treated so horribly by their franchises that they should have the ability to get up, enter their name into the portal, and become in the NBA portal. This is what I'm talking about, Pete. You have currently 54 active rookies on a roster. 54. Think about that, fellas. All of you guys out there that are going to be our future stars in the NBA, think about that. 54 rookies only on 30 teams. That's less than 2 per team. A whole bunch of those gentlemen are internationals as well. 25 of them average over 2 points per game. 25 of the 54 rookies average over 2 points per game. Portal time, 29 average less than 2 points per game. I'm out of here. This is what happens in college, right? When you get this same thing, I'm gone. I'm transferring. I'm on to a new place. I'm in the portal. Well, the NBA should get a portal. 6 players, 6 average double figures of the 54 rookies in the NBA right now.
If the NBA got a portal, it would tell a lot about how the players feel about that league.
It's unbelievable.
It would tell a lot on how they feel about that league.
I think, you're going to, what has to happen, if you look at the NBA and then compare it to college, you have to tell these young men to wait it out, to sit it out. Now, what's happening in the college ranks is you have a guy in 4 different schools in 4 different years. The reason for that is the NIL, though, because a lot of those guys have been able to step up and get a bigger, better deal every single year. That's the way the game is rolling over right now. No problem with that. But the other stuff is these gentlemen who are in this thing who just think, I got to get out of here because they don't actually want to spend the time in their program to earn their time. Okay, to earn their keep. You have seniors that are in front of you in a college basketball program with 300 plus more practices than you. That matters. And freshmen often come in and they're very, very good, but once the games start and once all of the action starts, it's very, very difficult to have them completely tuned up to where they need to be. There's rare ones that can, but very, very rarely do you find that. All right, Pete, let's slip. Let's go back door. Let's throw an alley-oop. Let's jump right into our Super 25 college NCAA. Folks, as promised, we don't play games with an algorithm, okay? Duke is 5-2 right now. They have 2 losses, and Torvik has them at number 1. Why don't you tell me you love Duke without telling me you love Duke? All right? It's unbelievable. And this is the thing I like about In the Zone is we promise we're going to keep it clean for you folks. Every week we're going to read the papers, we're going to read the scores, we're going to look at who's doing what, but the last thing we're going to do is dump all of this into some algorithm and let a machine tell me what my eyes have seen for all of these years and what they see absolutely right now. Number one, Pete, Tennessee, the Volunteers, no longer Volunteers because their student fees went up in order to cover their NIL, but they're semi-volunteers right now. 8-0. Rick Barnes is the class of the coaching class. He's one of the best. If you go through the top five, you know, you got to put Danny Hurley in there now, and you got Bill Self. You know, you got to put Barnes in there. I love Dana Altman. I'm going to maybe put together a little bit of a 5 or 10 right now that I got in the college game. Tell you one guy that won't be in it is John Calipari. I cannot, for the life of me, understand why people continue to hire that guy. Florida, 8-0. They have Walter Clayton Jr. He is one of the best players in the country, folks. Not a lot of people. This is like the NBA. There's so many guys out there that they talk about. Mark Sears from Alabama, R.J. Davis. Both of those guys are not having good years. Walter Clayton is killing it. Walter Clayton is having a monster year. He's one of the big reasons that Florida is going. And they got a whole bunch of stuff swirling around that program with the coaching staff and with stuff going on. Great credit to the Florida Gators to be able to focus up, stay 8-0, and go. All right, number 3. This was a 1 a.m. decision, folks. I'm up at 1 a.m. and I'm reading my ESPN and I'm going through it, and Oregon is in a dogfight with USC, which is now a Big Ten game. Go figure. Okay? But Oregon is a team I've been watching all along. I like them. I like their coach. They got a lot of talent on this team. But Oregon's in a dogfight with USC, down most of the game, got on top late in the game, and right now, got to put them up there. Got to put them up there, Pete. They're 9-0, and they're doing really good stuff. I don't know if they got matched up with Duke, if they would beat Duke. I don't know if they get matched up with Auburn, if they beat Auburn, but we're just reading the tea leaves here. This is what we're doing. This is how the season is shaking out. Florida's got credible wins. Tennessee has credible wins. Oregon's got credible wins. But now you go into the bottom here, and we see where people are starting to pick up with the losses. Auburn got clipped last night by Duke. Good game. Cameron Indoor Stadium. I give Bruce Pearl a lot of credit. This is where I want to stop just for a second, Pete, though, and tell people exactly why what's happening now, which I love and which is really good for the game, is occurring. Okay? It's the Notre Dame football model being implemented in college basketball. We've talked about this. I'm going to explain it really quick. Notre Dame had their own TV contract for years. And then Notre Dame would sit down when they made their schedule, and their coaching staff would say, let's get Western, Eastern, Northern, and Southern Michigan in here, and we'll beat them by 50 points, and we'll start off 4-0. But then the TV executives who gave them all that money sat there and said, whoa, wait a second. Nobody's going to watch Northern, Southern, Western, and Eastern Michigan get beat by 50 points. You have to play real Michigan, real Oklahoma, real Ohio State. What happened to Notre Dame's football program? It got eaten alive. They were 5-5, 6-4. Coaches getting fired. Alums are upset. They're not at the glory days. The Subway alumni are out of their minds. Now, they've recalibrated that. Joined the ACC, kind of slipped in and slipped out, but they're still independent. They still got their money, which is the key. They got more money, Notre Dame football, than everybody else has together. So, and that means conference by conference. That's why they would never join a conference. Their deal was better than any conference deal they could get.
Yep.
Okay? Now let's juxtapose this into college basketball right now. Okay? If anybody's still following with me. All right? But what happens is the reason you're seeing all of these great games right now, 12-4, you had Iowa State and Marquette was a 5-6 game. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a basketball coach, and most Division I coaches that I know will run from this type of competition early in the year like they're running away from something that's horrible, running away from a thunderstorm, okay? So why are they scheduling these games? Because the TV people, who are now the NIL people, knocked on the door and said, the people want to see Alabama play North Carolina. So R.J. Davis goes up against Mark Sears. The people want to see Janai Broom go up against Cooper Flagg, two of the guys fighting for number 1 and 2 pick. Now you see it. But the coaches didn't go into this. The coaches are cannoli devouring entities. They will devour as many cannolis as you give them because they feel good when they win. They feel good when they jump off 12-0. Their team feels good when they jump off 12-0. Now Houston's 4-3. They're punched in the nose a bunch of times. Same thing that happened to Notre Dame's football program. The TV people are saying, we want these games. And I bet their numbers are pretty good on some of these games. The one piece of advice I would do is tell them, you don't need to put 8 of them on in one day because nobody can fathom all of that basketball. Break some of that up into a 2 or 3 day thing, and you're going to have the three or four best days of basketball of the year right there in early December. All right? But I just wanted to stop there and explain that to people. That's why all of these games are occurring. Not because coaches are really looking to grind it up and get their teams ready, which you would hope they would do. No, they're not. They're hiding. They're hiding behind their cannolis. They're hiding behind their guarantee money. They're hiding behind their NIL money. The television people are the ones making them play these games. I can guarantee you that. All right. So now we got to pick up some people with some losses. Auburn gets clipped last night at Duke. I had to take them out. Kansas gets clipped by Creighton. What a great game that was. I mean, that was unbelievable. And again, when I tell you Greg McDermott's one of the best coaches in the country, believe it. Because not a lot of people can give Mark Self the little beat around that they caught last night in Nebraska. Again, I give Self credit because like a lot of people would want that to be neutral. You know, Bruce Pearl brought his team into, these are part of an agreement, but Bruce Pearl brought his team into Cameron Indoor. That's a tough place to play. I mean, it's really, really rough. So you got Kansas slipped out. Now they're 7-1. Gonzaga 7-1. Iowa State 6-1. They beat Marquette last night, gave them a pretty good win. That top level right there, anybody could be number one, really. That's a really good top tier. Now when you enter into this next tier, it's also very, very strong. Kentucky 7-1. They got clipped in a weird kind of game. Illinois 6-1. Another loss that you shake your head at. Oklahoma's 8-0. Porter Moser, everybody remembers him from Sister Jean and Illinois, Loyola Chicago. Really, really great run into the Final Four that year. Well, he's got Oklahoma at 8-0. They've devoured a lot of cannolis, but they have a pretty good team from what I can understand. Texas at 6-1. They lost their first game of the year to Ohio State and haven't lost since. Moving Michigan up a little bit here as well. I got to see them play. Vlad Golden is our FAU transfer that came in with Coach when he went from FAU to Michigan. He's a really, really good coach, Dusty May. He's got this team playing good basketball, and he's got some good players. Golden's a legit center, and if you got a legit center, you can work it. If you saw Kalkbrenner against Dickinson last night, you saw two really great centers go at that game as well, too. So we got Oregon. We had to bump them all the way up. So we got Wisconsin next, St. Mary's right after them. Two really good teams. Wisconsin's a whole lot better than anybody thought they were going to be. Purdue 7-1. They'll be back. This guy's a great coach. They'll be back. The surprise team in this Super 25 is Memphis. Penny Hardaway. He fired his entire staff right before the season. All of his assistant coaches, everybody gone. Brought in a whole new bunch of guys. Everybody was saying there's going to be mayhem, going to be terrible. They knocked off Connecticut. They knocked off Michigan State. They're doing pretty good stuff. And I like Hardaway as a coach. Clemson 8-1. Clemson 8-1. That's where Kentucky got clipped. Kentucky went into Brownell, into that stadium, Little John Stadium, and they got clipped the other night. That makes Clemson 8-1 with a good win over Kentucky, and that's Kentucky's sole loss. Don't look now out west, but UCLA's got it rolling again. Mick Cronin 7-1 and doing really good stuff. I put Alabama at 19. They have two very, very credible losses, but they're also losses. Duke the same way. They're at 20, but they're 6-2. They got two losses. And again, I can't put them in the top. There's certainly no way a number one team when they're 6-2. That's where the algorithm loses me. That's where these guys who are nerds, who don't know a whole lot about basketball, just follow the numbers, they lose me. I love the numbers. I love the data. I love all that stuff. But if you don't apply the Bruce Springsteen human touch, you don't have the whole story. Georgia 8-1. They've got a really good freshman, and they're pretty good. They've got some good wins. Mississippi State, keep an eye on this team. Cam Matthews, they got some other great athletes on this team. They went out and absolutely smoke show the other night. Played a great game the other night. Arizona State, Bobby Hurley. When he took his team into Duke for that exhibition game, Arizona State, I looked at that team and I was like, wow, that's going to be a really, really rough year for that team. Maybe that experience was a recalibration for them because he's got this team playing really, really well. 8-1, Arizona State, I put them in there. Utah State will close out with us, Pete, in the top 25. They beat my Bonnies. My Bonnies are 8-1, doing really good stuff. Coach Schmidt is just such a great coach, but that was a good game to watch. Utah State is very, very good. Here's what I'm talking about, Torvik turnovers, okay? Bart Torvik, Ken Palm, Evan Mayakawa, all these guys. I'm sure they're great guys. John Fanta, none of them look like they've ever dribbled a basketball before, though, okay? And the point being is that you don't have that experience in the game. Torvik turnover, number 1, Duke. They're 6-2. How can they be number 1? Can't happen. Number 3, Houston. They're 4-3. They have 3 losses. How could they be 3rd in the country? Alabama 6-2. They've got them in at number 8. They're not 8. You know, maybe 20, 19 somewhere. Yeah, they're a good team, but they're not 8. Not right now with 2 losses. You have Marquette. They were 8-0. They lost last night. They had them at 12. They have Oregon at number 30. They're 8-0 now, 9-0. They had them at number 30. This team's really, really good, folks. All right, Connecticut, they have them at number 27. I had Connecticut, even down. I took Connecticut out of the top 25 for us. Those 3 losses are significant. And we just call it straight here. We love the Huskies. We love their team, love their coaching staff, but we got to call it straight right now. I do think they'll be able to get back, but I don't know. It's going to be an interesting ride for them. Going to be a very interesting ride for them. Let's see if they can calibrate. Let's see if they can get that whole thing together. Because if you look back, maybe when they made that first run through the NCAA tournament and they won their first title, things weren't going all that swimmingly in the middle of that year. Things weren't going all that great in the middle of the year. That team turned a corner in January, got going, got rolling, and really, really hit their strides late. Same thing last year, although last year's team was dominant almost throughout the whole year, but they also hit their strides very, very late and ran through that NCAA tournament into a championship. Right now, keep an eye on this team because Hurley's a good coach. They got a good coaching staff, and all of what they went through will bring them closer together, will bring them tighter if it doesn't break them, and they'll come back, and I think they'll be still get in there. But Creighton, Marquette, the Big East up top's a little tougher. The middle, St. John's, Xavier right now a little tougher, so it's going to be a little bit different ride. Let's just go through what I'm calling Wild Wednesday, Pete. That was last night, and this is why I was shaping my Super 25 all night long. I'm crossing this out. I got to rewrite it. I got like 8 pieces of paper crumpled up on my floor. We're going through this scenario. We're going through that scenario. And the way I came out with it was I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Pete's going to get it really, really late, but I'm going to wait until after all the games are done. Oregon and USC was really the last game that I had to worry about. And I waited, and then we put it together. But the matchups did not disappoint, Pete. We had Baylor and UConn. Huge game for UConn because this is a quality opponent. North Shore Normier, VJ Edgecombe was expected, and I think that game was in Madison Square Garden. So for Edgecombe not to have played in that game, which was a homecoming for him, probably is somewhere related to injury. Jeremy Roach from Duke on that team. That was a great matchup last night, 76-72. I don't think they had Edgecombe, but Leah McNeely played very, very well. That's what they're also looking for. They need Mahaney, and they need McNeely to be those fill-in spot guys that make those outside shots for them. That's what they need those guys to do. Alabama handled North Carolina last night. This North Carolina team is in disarray right now. Bringing back R.J. Davis. They have Cadeau. They thought that was going to be a great backcourt. I don't see it. Their front line is the worst front line in North Carolina history, possibly. And right now, this team has a lot of weaknesses. Ian Jackson coming off the bench, Drake Powell, 2 really, really good freshmen, but just not enough. I don't know if this team can finish in the top quadrant of the ACC. Bottom line is, and I'll say this to all these coaches, if you're going to try and reclaim any part of what you're going to do right here with a team that's not performing right now, get to the defensive end of the floor. Get your team to play good defense. Get your team to get some stops. Take charges. Dive on the floor for loose ball. Show a willing commitment to do what it takes to achieve victory when you don't have the best talent. It's a rare spot for North Carolina to be in where they don't come out and gun people with the best talent. But they're in that spot right now. And they need to have somebody on that bench with Coach Davis that can respond in that moment, because right now I think it's lacking. But they got handled last night, 94-79. Sears played good. He was 20-7. R.J. Davis, 7 out of 24. Really, really a poor performance. 1 out of 11 from three-point range. Not good. Not good. Okay, Virginia and Florida. This is where Tony Bennett walked out the team right before the season, walked out of the whole operation right before the season and retired, left it to Ron Sanchez, really put Coach Sanchez in a rough spot, put his team in a rough spot. I understood that he did what he did, but they just haven't recovered from him walking out the door. They're 5-3 right now. They lost last night to a really good Florida team, but they got handled. They got handled last night. Clayton, 27 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Maybe the best guard in the country right now, folks. Walter Clayton. All right, Marquette goes against Iowa State. Another great game. The difference in this game wasn't indicative. The game was much closer. Iowa State got away from them at the end. Some really, really good guard play. Keshawn Gilbert, I'm going to give you that name, one of the better guards in the country. He went for 24-7. And Cam Jones, a guy we're very high on for a Wooden Award winner from Marquette, 14-8-9. Kansas, Creighton. This one wasn't close, man. 76-63. Creighton handled them. The game wasn't in any kind of contest down late in the game. Stephen Ashworth brought the crowd like to a frenzy with a couple of threes that he banged down late in that game, and it was absolutely a really, really master performance by Creighton that they can put on in their home arena. Kalkbrenner went for 17-10. Hunter Dickinson, and this is where the scrutiny comes, folks. Scrutiny on Bill Self, his assistant coaches, everybody. How much did you pay for Dickinson? And because when you go into those big games, when you go into those needy games, last night, 6 points, 2 for 4 from the floor. Just never been a big fan of his, you know? Never really been a big fan of his. We had Duke and Auburn on Wild Wednesday. Duke looked good. Cooper Flagg looked good. He's a tough kid. He plays hard. I don't see him as my number one in the NBA right now, but I'm willing to look and listen and watch a little more. Auburn, Janai Broome played very, very well. They have a good team, but they're Auburn, and they're the guys who had their plane turned around, and they're the guys who have significant emotional responses to things in the game, and their coaches can be a little bit on the sidelines, a little crazy too. What happens is when you drop that Molotov cocktail into Cameron Indoor Stadium and everybody's against you, it has a tendency to turn your team out a little bit. And I thought that Auburn got turned out a little bit. They started off the game very, very strong, but the crowd, Duke played very, very hard, and the crowd was really, really up in it. Mississippi State, the one I told you, they absolutely schnoggled somebody last night, was a team that I'm kind of high on. I think they'll have a good chance to win the ACC. They matched up against Mississippi State, Pittsburgh last night, and Pitt had been doing very, very well. They were considered in some people's top 25. They got absolutely manhandled by Mississippi State. Pete, this is one I wanted to throw out for our listeners at the end. They can talk about this, reach out to us, and do whatever they want. But Oregon, as a result of winning that tournament the other day that they were in, they got $1.5 million distributed into their collective.
Wow.
Which means their NIL money. And this is for the Winning the Players Era Festival, $1.5 million. I'm interested to see what some of our Zoner thoughts are on that. Are you comfortable with teams getting over $1 million for showing up in a tournament and winning, and then having that money applied to their collective, in addition to all of the television revenue and the side money that these people are getting? You don't have enough money in your collective, you can go outside. You don't have enough money outside, you can bump up your collective. I mean, it's absolutely a sideshow right now. And then schools like St. Bonaventure, they'll tell you exactly where they're at. When they have to go get a guy like Woj to come in and be their general manager, that tells you exactly where this game is at. And credit to Bob Beretta, the AD there, for seeing a little bit of the future and saying, I need the best guy I can get in order to do this, because this is real. It ain't going away. And it's going to be something that if you do not match the intensity of the day, your program will be suffered from it. There will be deleterious exposure for your program. Pete, this is what I was talking about in reference to your earlier Pete's Corner question with who's got the power. We got the Power 5 conferences out there. Who's got it? Who's got it? I think this year is going to be interesting. We got to watch it. We got to see. We're kind of in the first quarter here a little bit, maybe a third way through with the basketball season, but we got to watch it a little bit, and hone it and really shape it up here. But the ACC is 12-28 against other Power 5s. Not good. Big 12, 14-18. That's a bit of a surprise. But you see all these teams are getting roughed up. Big East is 10-12. Almost 500, but still below the Mendoza line. The Big Ten, 21-14, above the Mendoza line and doing really, really well. The SEC, the cream of the crop, this is what I alluded to, and I only went really by these numbers, 29-13 against all the other Power 5s. I'm a little surprised at the Big 12 getting clipped up as much as they do, but right now in the Big 12, they're playing a lot of clutch and grab basketball. Houston's kind of dominated the day down there, and they got all these very highly athletic teams, clutch and grab defenses, but they don't score the ball well, and they're having a real problem, getting to it. All right, Pete, here's how we're going to shape it up. We're going to let you know. When we tell you this thing was a snow globe, we mean it was a snow globe. Not only did we get snow here in Western Massachusetts, beautiful, nice little amount last night, beautiful little falling of the snow action, coached the backyard up nicely. But what we did was we looked at it and we said, wow, the snow is falling inside the NCAA snow globe. 60% of the AP top 25 lost this week. That's what we're talking about with the TV people making them play those games against other people, having those tournaments, the SEC Big East Challenge, the challenges that go on between the tournaments. Unbelievable. This is called scheduling for television, folks. Get used to it. It might get a few coaches fired, but again, we're going to give them one more little piece of advice. Break that 12-4 into 12-5, 12-6, make it 3 days, and that's going to be unbelievable. Because I'm a basketball junkie. I tried to follow it all last night, and it was near impossible. It was really, really difficult. And then they say we're going to tape a game and go back. You can't with all the other games that are on because you don't have time. There's only a certain amount of visual hours. Pete, we're out of time. Fastest hour in the United States, the best basketball show in the United States. We'll see you next week, folks. We are in the zone.